Welcome to Read Poems Every Day. This morning I was reading Perry Zern's wonderful book, How We Make Each Other Trans Life at the Edge of the University, a book I was drawn to because of my interest in university studies, but also a general interest in works of cultural criticism and theory. And what I wasn't expecting was how much this book is about poetics. The third chapter, Mobilizing Trans Poetics, has an epigraph attributed to a poet I had never come across before, Oliver Bendorf, which sent me looking for poems that are available online. And I came across this pretty stunning work called 1987. Now, initially, I thought, well, this doesn't really work for my YouTube series. And it doesn't work because it isn't a poem that's traditionally lineated, formed into lines and into stanzas. And it seems to be doing uh, a different kind of work with visuality and arrangement. And maybe my method of slowly getting to know a poem doesn't work for it. But then again, I thought, well, in some sense, that's what the channel's for, is me sort of seeing if my process of reading, of slow reading, might actually still help me get to know a poem like this too. And so I downloaded on Poetry Foundation. If you click on the image, you download a PDF that's a little easier to work with. Unfortunately, Hypothesis won't work with it, but we've already established a backup when that happens with Google Docs. So I thought I thought we might spend some time with Oliver Bendorf's 1987 together. The language might look it might be a little hard to read on the YouTube screen here. So here's the whole poem, and then I'm going to zoom in as I read through it. And I'm curious if you're watching this, if you follow the link in the video description to this poem, what's the way that makes the most sense to you to read it? Is it a poem that works being read aloud? Is it a poem that's meant to be enjoyed silently, or is it a poem that's available to multiple ways of interfacing with it? My sense is most poems are always available to multiple ways of interfacing, but since this one is doing something visually with respect to the arrangement of the words on the page that's outside just the bounds of lineation and stanza organization, it'll be interesting what instinct you bring to it. Okay, so I'm going to do my best to just read through at least the words that are arranged on this image, and then we'll start working through my process and see how I might have to modify my process as we start to get to know this. So this is Oliver Bayes Bendorf's 1987. It has this shape at the center of two columns of lines, if we can call them lines. So let's hear those lines. I'll read the left column and then I'll read the right column. A star exploded. To knoll meant to arrange at angles. Moonstruck. It's temporary. I didn't ask to be born in 1987. And then I feel the urge to repeat in 1987, everything that happened. I wanted to find out what it means to be born. Not means, feels like. And then I feel like I want to repeat that again. Feels like I came as flowers. And then let me zoom out again just so you get a sense of the whole poem again. Sort of hard to see. Let me see if I can do this and make it a little bigger. All right, so this is the poem. For those who have a kind of allergy to visual poetics, and its introduction into poetry. I would invite you just to remember, as my poet friends often remind me, poetry, the word poetry, comes from the ancient word poesis, which simply means to make. Not so simply, but it fundamentally means to make. And many of my friends challenge my understanding of what poetry is, what lyric poetry is, what narrative poetry is, and what abstract visual poetics can do. So what I want to find out in the next few minutes is if I can bring my process of slowly getting to know poems to a poem like this. I think I can. I think I can. So let's slide this back over. And we'll try to do some bean counting. Of course, the bean counting is going to be a little different, right? It's going to be just a little bit different. So I think I still want to call these fragments of language, lines. So if we consider that if we think that they are lines, I'm going to move my head just a little bit. Do that. There we go. If we think of them as lines, we can still count them, right? One, two, three, four, five, six lines on this, if we call it column, or this side of the shape, and then one, two, three, four, five lines on this side. So that's 11 lines, six to the left side of the shape in the middle, five lines to the right of the shape in the middle. Okay. I sort of want people to be able to see all that. I'm gonna hit pause real quick and try to get my document set up here. Hold on. All right, I think I have my setup the way I want it now. 11 lines. One, two, three, four, five, six lines on the left. One, two, three, four, five lines on the right. Even though I'm counting them, I'm not sure it makes sense to refer to them as, say, line 3, line 5. But even so, I still want to get a sense of how many lines we're talking about here. There aren't any organizations into stanzas, but there are. I guess I am gonna have to sort of refer to them as line, maybe the fourth line. Um, there is, let's see, more space between the fourth line, left side, and fifth line, left side. More space between the fifth line, left side, and sixth line, left side, which is just really a kind of long way around to saying that in 1987 is spatially set apart. Set apart, I hope you know what I mean by that just by looking at the poem here. Set apart not because it is like a great distance from the other lines, but I think you can see that there's greater space above and below that line. If we look over here, do we see anything like that? Um, hmm, not really. But I will say the arrangement of lines, indentation, alignment with respect to margins plays with the contour of the shape. shape. And so you see the left side of the shape here juts out further up here than it does down here. And so these, you can kind of draw a line kind of going down this way. And then once the poem is kind of under, it sort of juts back to the left. Same thing here, as the image kind of moves to the right and then curves back, you can see a similar curve to the alignment of the words too. Okay, a star exploded to null. All right. So bean counting. Let's see. So lines get a sense of space. The arrangement of lines sort of interfaces with the sort of curves on the left and right side of the object, not so much the top and bottom of the object. Hmm. Uh, the object or shape in the middle juts out above the top lines, left and right. Um, the left column of lines hangs below the bottom of the shape object, which lines up a bit more closely with the final line in the right column. So you'll see the fifth line on this side sort of is not completely in alignment with the bottom of the object, but it comes close. All right. Is there anything, does it make any sense to talk about enjambment in this poem? I think so. I think so. I mean, my sense is the first two lines are kind of standalone fragments or clauses. A star exploded, to null meant to arrange at angles. Moonstruck, which is a reference to a film, I believe. It's temporary. Um, I didn't ask to be born. I was just kind of double checking. This is not part of bean counting per se, but I was just double checking that the film Moonstruck was released in 1987, and at least according to my very quick googling, it was. Okay, that's not quite bean counting, but even so. So each of these lines, each of the first three lines, there doesn't appear to be any kind of enjambment at work, especially here. But what's interesting, and you heard it in my reading of the poem, there does seem to be some sort of possible enjambment, some possible spillage, let's call it, between born and in and 1987 everything. But those three lines do not constitute a single syntactic unit, but rather an overlapping of two distinct sentences. So you heard it in my reading. I didn't ask to be born in 1987. I mean, it's quite an enjambment because it moves from a kind of existential, I did not ask to be born, none of us did, to then just saying I didn't ask to be born now, right, in 1987. What are the consequences of being born in the late 1980s in this year specifically? But then it's almost as if there's a reset, and I had not read this poem out loud before hitting record, so I'm not entirely sure why I sort of felt the need to repeat that as a sort of resetting a syntax that then spills from that line to the next in 1987. Everything that happened happened. Maybe it's just having read poems for a long time, my eyes kind of scan ahead and try to think about those units. And then so that's there, and then maybe enjambment. There is more enjambment over here. Let's see. Yes. Out what? I wanted to find out what it means to be born. I do think there's kind of some sort of punctuated pause there, even though there's no punctuation, some sort of punctuated pause there. Not means. This reminds me of Donica Kelly's Brood a little bit, right? That moment where the speaker kind of self corrects. Um, if speaker is even the right word to use for a poem that incorporates visual poetics like this, what it means to be born, um, not means, feels like. And then this one too, I read twice because it's almost as if there's the double correction, not means, and then the substitution feels like, and then a kind of pause there. But there is a way in which, like, I can, when the last lines are isolated, read as if it read as if enjambed, right? So I wanted to find out what it means to be born. That feels enjambed. Not means feels like. And so the end of feels like it should be both a punctuated pause, but then when it's connected to that last line, there's a way in which it does kind of spill over when isolated. Feels like I came as flowers. It both works, but also, but also you could also isolate that last line so that is just by itself. I came as flowers, right? Okay. Hmm. Interesting. So there's no punctuation. No punctuation. Wait, not true. Maybe I should just take all that out. So punctuation. It's in the video at least. The punctuation. There are quotation marks. Um, second line, left column, or left side. Second and third line, left side, colon, third line, left side, apostrophe, fourth line, left side, comma, sixth line, left side. That's so funny. There's no punctuation here. And then suddenly there's quotation marks, colons, apostrophes, commas. Okay, Dr. Hagen. Okay, Dr. Hagen. What is interesting, there maybe this is why I was thinking it. But no punctuation on the right side of the poem. Right, I'm not correct. Yes, okay. There are no punctuation marks here. There's quite a few over here. So that's sometimes bean counting's worth it. Not again, I'm not saying there's anything significant to that yet, but it does demonstrate a kind of contrast that the poem, I mean, it is a contrast. It's not kind of one, but there is some deviation happening as we move from the left side to the right side, that something as important as punctuation is missing. Hmm. All right, so there's that. There are pronouns, or at least, so we get the it's in the quotation from Moonstruck, but we don't know quite, unless we know the film or the scene in which that's said, and I don't recall it. Um, I don't recall what's being referred to there. It's temporary. I may have some guesses, but I'd rather not guess on camera. And so, unless you get the reference and know the scene, know the line, if it indeed is a line from the film, there's a kind of floating antecedent there. There's a floating antecedent there. But there's definitely, you have the reference to I, fourth line, right side. Fourth line, right side. And then repetitions of I on the right side. First line, left side, and then fifth line, left side. So there's three instances of I. There's also an it in the second line, left side. So what it means there, that what it means to be born, there's not really an antecedent there. That's more along the lines of the kind of floating pronoun. Um, what it means to be born. Okay, so those are the pronouns, punctuation, enjambment. And what can we say about the pronouns? There's a way in which the title and the body of the poem point toward a historical context, point toward a historical context, but also clearly locate an I into the context, an I that is somewhat, what's the word here? Is it disconnected from it? I didn't ask to be born, or in a kind of located, but also somewhat dislocated, disconnected. But I do want to ask, are these the right words? The I situates us into a certain person's experience of a gap between, or maybe this is anticipating the sense that would be sort of taken up in the next step, situates us into a certain person's experience of a gap between facts of being born, including sort of the context, historical, linguistic, cultural, um, astronomic, astronomic, and what that means. Or instead, what it feels like. Hmm. Jumping ahead, and I guess this part of the process of bean counting, I'm not going to work through every step here, so maybe it's worth skipping ahead a bit. In sitting with this poem and not even yet asking what the middle shape affords the the poem's ideas and maybe the questions it encourages us to ask, without even getting that far, we could start to wonder, could start to wonder about what the poem is doing. Hmm. Is is being is being's secret not in meaning or in location, space, time, culture, but in feeling? To be clear, I'm not saying this is what the poem is poem's thesis is, or something like this. And I imagine that if pressed just a little bit, what it means to feel might thread us back through some of these coordinates, but it seems like it might start to get us on the right track a little bit. If I'm thinking about figurative language, I'm thinking that this shape in the middle also sort of connects with this sense of an exploding star, but also morphs into the sense of a kind of map where one is trying to kind of locate oneself. But as you can see, there's no X or no dot maybe to indicate where one is. Or maybe this is the shape of a self. Or maybe it's not a shape of anything. Maybe it's a sort of metonymy for everything, or a visualization of everything, or of not being sure of a meaning, or of, with its curves, the registering of a feeling. All right, I think that's enough for one video. Only got through bean counting, but previewed where some of the later steps of getting to know a poem might take this. But thanks for spending some time with me and Bendorf's 1987 this morning. I'm really grateful to Perry Zern, how we make each other for um, both for the work of the book, but also for introducing me to this poet. All right, let's read more poems tomorrow.